How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is my Dewalt 735 planer, which is an amazing tool. I have no complaints about it. I highly recommend it. But like anything else, it's not perfect, and it's always had a couple of little things that have irritated me about it. One of them actually has to do with my dust collection setup, which isn't really attributable to the planer. But the other one, and the big one, is this guy right here, which is the dust collection adapter that hooks onto the exhaust on the planer. It comes with the planer. And the problem is that I keep breaking it. And I can't be the only one that's doing this. And I have come up with a solution that will fix both of these problems. And that's what we're going to do today. So if you want to see what I do to fix that, then stick around. Alright, so to say that I came up with a way to fix it is kind of disingenuous because it wasn't my idea. It's Rockler's idea. It's been around for a while. You may have seen it before. It looks like this. But anyway, the problem that I've been having is that I didn't fully commit to that whole idea. I kind of did it partially. When I first got this, the first thing that I did was I was trying to save money. I was being lazy. Insert whatever you want to put in there. But what I did was I attached the bag directly to the adapter. And what happens is it works, but one, the bag gets in the way of the wood and you have to kind of hold it up out of the way. But two, it drags down on the adapter. You can see this one's kind of doing that now. And causes it to break. All right, so the way this thing mounts is you have this slot on this side, and then you have a hole on this side. On the planer, there are two pins on the exhaust port. One of them is retractable, and one of them is solid. So as you might imagine, the solid one, you know, slides in here, and then you rotate, and then while you're holding in the retractable one, and it pops into there, and more or less holds this in place. Now, the problem is if you have any kind of weight on it, this little tab here gets broken very, very easily, and that's the part that I keep breaking. Once that happens, you know, with any significant amount of weight, it just kind of pops off when you're using it, and obviously that's problematic if you're trying to collect dust. As you can see here, I only kind of half-heartedly adopted that system that Rockler is recommending. Actually, initially, I was putting the bag directly onto the adapter, and that just caused all kinds of problems because one, the bag was in the way. I had to hold it up while the wood went through, and two, it was really putting a lot of pressure on this thing, and that's how I broke the first one. Now, then I went and bought the elbow and then attached the bag to the elbow, and was hoping that that would work, but it's the same issue. The way that I did it is I aimed the elbow this way so that most of the pressure is on the retractable pin that's in the hole, because that one's far less likely to break than the other one with that little arm on it. But it still, as you can see, puts a lot of pressure on it, and it still broke that pin twice in this fashion. Now, doing it this way more or less keeps the bag out of the way mostly. But if you watch carefully on some of the videos where you've seen me use this thing, you'll notice that I have to hold it up for wider boards as it goes through, because if they're closer to that side, it still rubs on it. And I don't want it to impede or slow down the board and, you know, cause snipe or anything. And I also don't want to have it keep rubbing on the bag and, you know, put a hole in it. So that gets to be a little irritating after a while. But with the Rockler system, as you saw in that picture, what they do, what I was supposed to do was attach a 4-inch hose that goes from here down to the side of the stand, where you then put a 4-inch adapter and you attach it to the stand using some self-tapping screws. And then what happens is that hose never moves. You route it so that it's out of your way of your wood. You don't have to manipulate it or move it in any way. There's very little downward pressure on it, and you're not constantly hooking up and disconnecting either a dust collector or the bag, you know, directly from the adapter. Instead, you're doing that down here at the fitting where it's mounted solidly to the stand. So, you know, that should keep this thing from breaking, or at least make it a lot harder to break it in any case. I mean, I suppose if you walk by it and hit it or something, it might break it, but you know, the whole point here is to try to just quit from buying these things, because I'm tired of buying them. I'm tired of replacing them. But anyway, the only flaw in that system is the bag. Now, this thing works great. As you know, if you have one of these, or if you don't, this thing has a really powerful blower in it, which kind of separates it from some of the less expensive benchtop type planer models. It blows the chips out pretty forcefully. If you have a backyard and you don't care where they go, I mean, this thing will shoot them out probably 15 feet across the yard, and you know, you don't need anything. I don't want to do that in my yard, so what I do is I put this bag on here to collect them, and you don't need anything else. You don't need any suction, you don't need anything like that, because it'll blow everything into the bag. You know, honestly, if you go back and see some of the videos where I've used this planer, you'll see that even when this bag is half full, or even all the way full, that blower is so powerful that it puffs that bag up like a balloon, and it stands straight out to the side over here. You know, but as you turn it off, it deflates, and then it pulls all that weight down on top of your adapter, which eventually is going to cause it to break. The reason that I use this bag, however, is because when you try to hook up a 2.5-inch hose to this and use a regular shop vac, in my experience, now I know a few people that have said they've done it and it works fine for them. I don't know how, because I did try it with a rigid shop vac and a 2.5-inch hose, and what happens is it gets clogged up because the blower is blowing out more forcefully than the shop vac can handle, for one, and plus two, you're trying to suck all these big chips that this thing makes through a 2.5-inch hose, and especially if you're using, you know, wet kind of sappy wood like pine and stuff like that. I mean, it gums up really quickly and easily inside there, and it backs up, and then you'll know right away, because the whole inside of this thing will fill up with chips. It'll start coming out everywhere, and that's happened to me, and it's a horrible pain when you got to take the whole thing apart and clean that all up when you're right in the middle of milling some wood down, you know, and you want to get that stuff done. You don't want to spend 20 minutes cleaning this thing out. So that's why, and that happened a few times, that's why I switched to the bag rather than using the shop vac. Now, the bag works, and it works well, and you know, it does fill up a little bit faster than I would like, but it's a pretty big bag, so it works. You know, it's a 5-micron bag, it's a 30-micron bag, so it's relatively inexpensive. You can get a higher micron bag, but they're like $100 for a 5-micron bag. And the problem is that if you're worried about the sub 3-micron particles that will cause you real damage, even that's not really going to help that much. But anyway, this thing doesn't put out fine dust, it puts out large chips. So I'm not really too concerned about that. And anyway, I tend to wear a mask no matter what I'm doing in any case, so I'm still protected either way. But anyway, the bag works well, it catches all of the chips, and you know, occasionally you have to empty it, and that's where the problem lies, because emptying this bag is a pain. Now, you know, some bags only have the opening at the top, and I couldn't even imagine trying to do that. But this one has a zipper at the bottom that you open up, and then you can, you know, dump the stuff out, but it doesn't come out as easy as you would think it does. And I guess if you held it into a trash can and were able to shake it very forcefully, you could probably get it out. But what I always find out I'm having to do is stick my hand up in there and dig everything out of it. And by the time I'm done, I've got a respirator on and I've got sawdust everywhere. I mean, I'm completely coated in it. It completely makes a mess out of everything that I'm wearing. And when you have to do that 2 or 3 or 4 times because you're milling a lot of wood, then, you know, obviously it can be a problem. So if you do not have a dust collector that can move the requisite volume of air that this thing needs to successfully capture everything that it puts out, again, I don't recommend a shop vac. It doesn't work, at least it didn't for me. The bag does work, it's just, you know, a hassle to clean it. But, you know, eventually you're going to move up to a full-fledged shop dust collector, which is what I have done now. And so I'm getting rid of this bag, thankfully, and finally. And I am finally going to install the hose and the connector so that I will quit breaking these, hopefully. So this is a pretty straightforward process. I'm just using some of these self-drilling sheet metal screws from the Big Orange Box Store to attach this Rockler Dust Right 4-inch mountable dust coupler to the side of my Dewalt planer stand. Obviously, if you've built your own stand out of wood, you would use wood screws for this instead. Next, I'm using a 4-inch clear flexible hose together with a 4-inch keyed bridge hose clamp to attach the hose to the coupler. So these clamps have a little step over. They're made for these types of hoses because if you try to put the ones that are just straight all the way around, they're going to cross over one of these metal bars at some point because it's like a spiral. So if you have it, if you have one of these, the clamp will sit down inside the space between like it's supposed to, and instead of crossing over the clamp crossing over the spring or the metal part that's inside, it'll step over it like that, and it fits a lot better. I forgot to film it, but next you just slide the planer adapter into the gray rubber end of one of these Dust-Right 4-inch quick change tool ports. I suggest holding off on tightening down the clamps so that you can reposition it to whatever angle you need after everything is hooked up and installed on the planer. Now, the hose comes in 10-foot lengths, and you'll only need a fraction of that, so mock everything up and figure out how much of it you'll need. Then simply use a razor blade or a knife to cut the hose itself between the metal rings, and then a pair of diagonal cutters to snip the metal ring to separate the pieces. Then attach the hose over the hard plastic end of the quick change port and secure it with another keyed bridge hose clamp. The last thing to do is to connect the adapter to the back of the planer, adjust the quick change port to your desired angle, and then tighten down those clamps on the gray rubber end to secure everything in place. And that's it. You're done. All right, there it is. So as you can see, I'm completely cleared here for the wood to pass through. No more holding anything up out of the way. And then down here, I can either hook up the dust bag to it again or connect my 4-inch port for the dust collector right there. And there's no, pressure or anything being put on that adapter anymore because all the connection happens right here where it's solidly mounted to the stand of the planer. That ought to do it. All right, and that's going to wrap it up for this one. So like I was saying before, I can hook the bag back up here like this. Or I can hook up the dust collector like this. And now there's no pressure at all being put over here on the adapter, so it's not going to break on me anymore because I'll always connect and disconnect from here. All of this stuff that you see I got from Rockler, so I will leave links to it in the description below in case you want to get the same setup. I'll also leave a list of their SKU numbers if you have a Rockler near you that you can just drive to and hand them the list and they can put together the parts for you. I have another upgrade video coming up on this thing. I have now gotten a helical head for it, and I'll tell you guys all about it, show you how I install it and do all that. So if you want to see that, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you enjoyed the content, please like, it helps out the channel. And I will see you guys on the next one. As always, stay safe and happy woodworking. See you next time.